Morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change your life. Basi, LeGani, Shevat. Okay, today we're starting Parak Gimel, chapter 3. So in yesterday's class and last Parak, we're basically talking about how we have to the contrast between a Mishkan, Vasili Mikdash V'Shechanti B'Seicham, is related to us, our Mishkan, and and our job is to make ourselves into a Mishkan for Hashem. And the way to do that is through Hiskaf and Hisabcha. And we discussed about learning and ultimately teaching in Nefesh Bahamis to enjoy the right things. And the way you do it is convincing it in ways that you can understand. So we talked about how learning what our Nefesh Bahamis, who's our Nefesh Bahamis, and when is he talking. So one thing I was thinking about, and I was talking to Michal about, is that what we need to do, or what we should do, is this Nefesh Bahamis, or at this point we know there's one example of Nefesh Bahamis talking. Could be when we go to eat. It's for sure when we go to eat. Could be when we're going to bed late. And what we got to do is we got to listen to Nefesh Bahamis. And from now on, when we talk about the word Nefesh Bahamis, we think about that idea, the going to bed. Although it doesn't come up about it so much now, most of the times like we did before, but have that in mind. And Nefesh Elokis is the voice telling you not to do that. I'm going to bed, let's say. There's the Nefesh Bahamis voice telling you to stay up, and Nefesh Elokis voice telling you to go to bed. Or whatever your example. Now we're going to discuss this idea furthermore in understanding the whole why is this even happening? Why do I have this struggle? Why does this work this way? Why is life this way? Why is it not clear? So let's see. Chapter 3, page 13. Through the above explanation, we can appreciate why the Mishkan, the sanctuary in the wilderness, was built of acacia wood. Here it was made from shittim. So why was it made from acacia wood? As we know, everything in Torah is exact, so nothing just superfluous. So the question is why? As we have seen, the primary function of the divine service in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash was the transformation of darkness into light. As we've explained until now, the purpose of the Mishkan and the Mikdash was to transform the darkness into light by means of these sacrificial offerings, and particularly through the incense offerings. The service revealed the light of God in the world through bringing the carbon and, more specifically, the incense, the keteris, that would cause godliness to be brought out, revealed in the world. Now, the word used in the Torah for acacia is shitta. So this wood that was used to build was called shitta, the root of which implies deviation in either direction. So shitta, and this is a very, very common subject of Basi, LeGani. This is something we're going to focus on a lot. This concept of deviation. You can deviate in the good way, for positive, deviate from negative, deviate from the middle path. But this deviation is coming, he talks about, is like in a foolishness. That's not logical. And a lot of what we do in our lives, if we would think about it, it's not logical. But what we're going to learn here is to do it not logical, but in a positive way. And he's going to give examples from the Talmud, the Gemara, about this, and we're going to learn how to apply it to ourselves. So Keisha Shita, the root for which implies deviation in either direction, higher or lower, from the middle path. The same root also implies foolishness. For foolishness is a deviation. Shtus is a deviation from the middle path of knowledge and wisdom. So when you deviate from the path of knowledge and wisdom, that's called shtus. It can be deviate from the path of knowledge and wisdom for the positive, or you deviate from the path of knowledge and wisdom for the negative. Let's see. There is foolishness that stems from the unholy side of the universe. The Torah therefore uses a derivative of the same root, tishta. Tishta from the same root as shtus, as shita. When speaking of the unfaithful wife, he turns aside. For as Rashi explained over there, she deviated from the path of modesty. So it talks about in Masechta Saita, talking about a Saita lady that she went and she did and she became immodest. The word they use is shtus, and Rashi explained what it means. She turned, like we're talking about shtus. He's bringing us examples and showing us how this word shtus, it comes from this language of turning. The same root appears again in the name of the location of Shittim, also by the Jews when they were in Shittim, when they left Mitzrayim and went to Shittim, in which Jewish people encamped on their way out of Egypt, and which they sinned through idolatry and licentiousness. The conduct there is another instance of foolishness that stems from holiness. So we see again the Shtus, or Shita, or Shittim, all come from the same sherish of turning, and the examples that he's been given, turning in the negative, being foolish and doing the wrong things. In this vein, our sages comment on the above mentioned wife who turns aside, Tishta. No man commits a sin unless a spirit of folly enters him. So what he's saying is that these examples are foolish things to do. Like the example of unfaithful wife, it's foolish. It's so much. It's not a smart idea. So why does she do it? It's because the spirit of impurity comes in, and no man commits a sin, meaning no person does a sin unless the spirit of folly enters him. Shtus comes into him. This spirit of folly drives from the klippa, the unholy side of creation, and it is covering over the truth. Covers over the truth. Is advisedly called the spirit of foolishness, for just as the evil inclination is called an old and foolish king, just like the Yitzhar, it's called a foolish and old king. This unholy spirit of folly veils the revelation of divine light. It obscures the truth and the vitality of godliness. And what does it do? It's foolish because it makes life hard. It covers over what's true and what's emes. For godliness is both true and life. Now, we'll finish it and I'll have a discussion about this. Godliness is truth and life. As in the verse, Hashem is the true God, the living God. For this reason, the evil spirit of folly is called by Kabbalists klippa. And that's why evil spirit of folly is called klippa. For like a pill or a shell, klippa means pill or a shell. It covers the fruit within, so too it obscures and conceals the revelation of divine light. So this is a very important discussion. First of all, we're saying a lot of good things. One is we have to realize that why do we do aveiros, or why do we do things we shouldn't be doing? Why do we go to bed late? Why do we eat unhealthy food? And why do we have a hard time doing Torah mitzvahs? It's because of the shtus. We don't do anything wrong except for the spirit of folly, or this foolishness that comes into us, that comes and it tells us to do these things. What's true in life and what's true and good? Yeah, he says, for godliness is both true and life. True in life. What is true in life? Godliness, Torah mitzvahs. And what's not true in life is klippa. What is klippa? By definition, what's it called klippa? Is that it covers, it conceals. So if we want what's true in life, we want to live. Who doesn't want to live? We all want to live. So we want to live, we have to realize that Torah mitzvahs is the way to live. And we see that what does the klippa do? It covers over the Torah mitzvahs to the extent that, and he's going to talk about it more, we don't even see it, we don't even appreciate it, we don't even think about it. Torah mitzvahs, whatever. You know, it's like if there's, to use an extreme example of it, if there's like contradiction between Torah and science. So if you realized, if you have the klippa is not there with you, so you're saying, what do you mean Torah is true? Torah is life, and Torah is truth. Sure, Torah is right. Science contradicts us. So we need to learn science a little better to figure it out, and science will figure out how it does contradict. Or maybe we don't understand what it means in the Torah, but the Torah is for sure emes. But what happens? The klippa comes. Klippa says, there's a contradiction between Torah and science. So it must be we have to figure out, change the way we understand Torah, because it can't be. Science is true and Torah isn't. But here we're saying clearly Torah is true. And like we said in the beginning, ein adam eva avera. A person doesn't do an avera unless a spirit of shtus, folly comes into him, a foolishness. And this is the problem of our lives. We have this foolishness, that we do things that are foolish. I remember when we learned this a few years ago, someone said that they have experience in France, and there's a rule in France that when you go out, let's say for breakfast, if you go out like a little later and you're there for a while and it comes to lunchtime, the unspoken rule is that you stay for lunch and you order lunch in the same restaurant. Why? This is a shtus. And there's a lot of shtusses we have in our lives. We have to figure it out. Why are we doing something? We're doing this because everyone else is doing it. We're doing it because this is the right thing to do. And we have to sit there and we have to ask ourselves these questions. Where's the spirit of shtus, the foolishness in our lives? And we have to ask ourselves what are we doing and where it is. because that's really holding us back from being successful. Because like we said, person doesn't do anything wrong. By nature, we shouldn't be doing anything wrong, but we still do. We do things that we shouldn't be doing. We're not living our lives to the best we can. And the reason is not because we're bad people. We're good people. We just have this shtus coming and this foolishness that's coming that's confusing us. Let's see. For otherwise, how could a person ever sin? Indeed, this is possible only because of his lack of sensitivity to realize that he thereby separates himself from God. It seems to him that his Jewishness remains intact. And another big fundamental idea, and also it's talking about in Tanya these days, that it's true. How can a person sin? What's a sin? A sin is going against the relationship that we have with God. How would we want to do anything that goes against the relationship with God? It's because we're not sensitive to it. We don't feel that nothing. We feel that nothing happens. I'm still good. I'm still Jewish. So I didn't say. I didn't say brachas for 8. So I didn't. Whatever it is, I'm still good. I'm still good. And that foolishness makes us not sensitive to the reality. For if he would only realize the plain truth that by sinning he becomes separated from God, but if we would only realize about any avera, anything that we do, big or small, separates us from God, then on no account would he sin. So he asks himself, but I know myself and I do things I shouldn't be doing. Why is that? Which is not sensitive. And instead of saying, I'm not a good person, so you have to learn to become more sensitive to myself, to my nefesh kiss. I have to be more sensitive to my relationship with God. Because the Jew neither wants to be separated from God, nor can he be separated from God. We don't want, and we're not able to. But we still see that we do. The proof that the statement that you see when a Jew is put to the trial of being forced to deny his faith, then when there's no room for the mistaken thought that he will not be separated thereby from God, he's willing to risk his life, to undergo suffering and pain, and to give up the very life in sacrification of the divine name. But we see, when it comes to the point of self-sacrifice, when someone says to you, Chas v'shalom, bow down to this, or we're going to kill you, generally, most Jews will say straight away, no way, I'm not doing this. I'm happy to give up my life. I will never do this. This phenomenon is observable even at the lowest levels of the spiritual attainment, even amongst the most light-minded and most sinful Jews. You'll have a Yid, a Jew that does a lot of averis, but still, when it comes to that test, will be a very clear, very obvious decision. And I've seen that in my life in different people that I've encountered, and it's a very clear thing. Why? So why does that happen? Why do they stand so strong, even though they haven't learned, they haven't connected so much, they don't know so much? Because they know and sense that in such a case, compliance would sever them from the God of Israel. And this no Jew can tolerate. Why? So why do they do it? Not because they understand so much, but they realize that this separates themselves from God. And by nature, we do not want to do this. We can't. And here, it's a case that we can see it. So then we're not going to do it. In the case of other sins, however, people lack the awareness and the sensitivity that these two separate them from God. But when it comes to small, so to speak, a small avera, so what's going to happen? You don't feel that loss of connection. They imagine that they are still as fully Jewish as they were before they had sinned. This delusion emanates from the spirit of folly described above, and this is all coming from the shtus that obscures the light and revelation of godliness to the point that they not felt. So you want to know why you struggle so much? It's because you just don't feel it. Why don't you feel it? Because we didn't do this kafir and this havchon. If we work on ourselves, we'll start to become more sensitive to ourselves. We'll start to realize, just like a person, Lamashal, now I used to love drinking Coke, but now I can't even drink it. If I have like half a cup, I haven't had it in I don't know how long. But like I remember a few years after, like a year or two after I'd stopped drinking soft drinks and stuff, I had some Coke. I wanted some. I had like half a cup, my stomach was hurting. What happened is I became sensitive. And so too with us. In the beginning, we're not sensitive, so we can drink as much as we want, and it tastes good. We like it, we enjoy it. This is the shtus. Is it good for us? I feel fine. I don't feel anything. I went for years drinking it. I don't feel anything because we're not sensitive to ourselves. But when we start to become sensitive, so then we'll start to appreciate it. Just like when it comes to the case of giving up your life for Judaism, you're very sensitive to it. That's like eating something that's really bad for you. So you'll feel it. It'll make you feel sick. You don't want to do such a thing. But when you start to work on yourself and you start to be sensitive to yourself, you realize that even the drinking of Coke is not good for you. There's millions of people drinking Coke, and Coke is probably making a lot of money still, but it's not sensitive. We have to realize this, and we have to become sensitive to ourselves. We'll stop here. Top of page 15. Very good. Thank you very much.